So Into the Breach, Subset Games, February 2018. Let me create a profile to get out of the way here. All right, so this is Into the Breach. It presents us with a great deal of information right out the get-go, right? So Into the Breach, the title of the game, nice and clear, just bang up at the top there. The interface screams like indie game, right? It absolutely says to me like Risk of Rain, FTL. It's got that vibe. It's the pixelated art style that we've come to remember from those kinds of games. Simple title, not a lot going on, but I think that it does communicate a great deal. So let's talk about what we can learn. I really love the color palette here. Traditionally, when we're given post-apocalyptic situations, we get color palettes of brown, gray, kind of busted ass, like that. But this is this beautiful gradient from dark purple out to light blue, that sort of periwinkle in the background. It retains a sense of like somberness that I think is really nice. But what's really great is that we get to see a little bit of color injected in as well. So that's really neat. I think it tells us a little bit about the game, that this is going to be a post-apocalypse, because obviously that foreground to midground shift, everything is wrecked. This is post-war. This is tragedy. We don't know whether it's ecological or what, but it imparts the setting very quickly. It's funny because I feel like what most people are drawn to is this bad boy right here, right? You pull your eyes right to that big robot, but for me, it was this section. This is what I saw first. The gradient, the shift. Also because it's kind of mid-frame, mid-screen, right? There's empty space in the middle, and I'm drawn to that empty space. But let's talk about this bad boy for a while. Now, notice, giant robot, but not battle giant robot. There's no gun, there's no sword, there's no missile pod. This is a giant robot standing with us in observation of the setting. This is a giant robot that is here to watch, to perceive, much the same way that we are. There is a funereal aspect. There is a humanness. This is a very anthropomorphic robot. This isn't a tank. This isn't it may be a machine of war, but it carries no weapons. Note also this little guy right there, the human shape, right? Our eyes drawn to human-sized objects, human-shaped objects, right? We see the arms and legs of the robot, and we see the head and body of this human, the little cape or cloak or jacket flapping in this invisible breeze. This gives us a sense of scale for the robot. We know the robot is big because the robot's standing very far away from the midground, but it also gives us a sense of companionship, of relationship, right? Because the robot isn't coexisting in the sense of like, this is not its pilot necessarily. This may be a friend of the robot. This may be its controller from a distance. It separates us from the robot. Think about how different this would be if even the person were standing on the robot or in the robot's hand, or we could see a cockpit in which this person sat. So this may be that this is the robot's pilot and they are done. They have finished their task. It may be that they are preparing for it, but there is a stillness to this scene that I think is really interesting. This is a game, we know from reading about it already, we know that this is a game about battle. The title speaks of battle, but I think what we're seeing is much more contemplative. This is a scene in which we are thinking about conflict, right? And what I'm seeing here is, I don't think we're seeing the moment before the battle, right? I don't think that's necessarily the case, because the ruin is done. Often when we're looking at a scene of apocalypse, it's too late. Nothing about this impels to me that like we're about to jump in and run into battle, which is an interesting contrast because as we mentioned before, Into the Breach is a pre-battle speech. It's the Henry V speech about like, get your shit together, we're going to fight. It's about girding your loins and getting ready to battle. So this feels to me somber and sad. This feels like a loss. This feels like it's too late to gird our loins, which is fascinating because I don't know the setting of the game, right? Are we seeing something that's too late, or are we coming to make amends for a failure? It's really, really interesting being able to derive those questions from the title screen. I think this title screen says more about what the game might be about than many that we've seen recently, many of the ones that we've looked at. So this could very easily be like the failure screen of the game. It makes me curious. It makes me want to play. I want to know, why is it called Into the Breach? If this robot looks so sad, why is this destruction happening? Why has it happened? Are we here to fix or save, or are we here to get revenge? Why are we seeing this like scene of pacifism and calm? It's fascinating. I like this title screen a lot. I'm not totally sold on the font choice. The title itself, that doesn't strike me. There's nothing really interesting about it. I think maybe the things that my eye is drawn to in the title itself is the odd shape of this N, the sort of hexagon shape of the O, and then this odd spacing for the R here. These feel like they are letters that are stamped, which is kind of the opposite of what I expect from something with a drop shadow like this. We're looking at what feels like a metal plate, right? These letters. Yeah, right. Octagon O. These like weird kind of shapes. They look machined, right? The C looks like a wrench. They have an industrial or a mechanical quality, which, interesting, is a choice, but I'm not sure what that choice means in relation to the rest of the screen. The menu itself is a simple slide-out menu, retains that sort of pixelated font that fits with the rest of the design. We get a faint clicking or ticking as we move across them. But before we get into the game, let's talk about the soundtrack for a second. So we're not hearing Into the Breach here. We're not hearing like the rattling of drums. We're not hearing saber drawing music. We're not hearing the theater of war. The music is contemplative. It reinforces the themes of the visuals. It gives us a human touch, right? This isn't electronic. I can hear strings and pianos. I can hear that violin, that plaintive violin. And so what's interesting here is that I think that it continues to reinforce that funereal feeling. Like, it feels like we're looking at something that we should feel sad about. It's evocative of the landscape, of the disarming of the robot. This isn't about war. Again, everything to me about the title screen runs counter to Into the Breach. Now, I think if I knew more about Shakespeare, if I could talk more about that speech from Henry V, I could probably draw the correlation between the two. But for me, as I recognize the reference at least, but as a person kind of coming into it blind in both degrees, I feel like this is asking more questions of us than it is telling us stories, which is a great thing to do with a title screen. The title screen is, as we've discussed, the cover of the book. This is the thing to draw us in. They've got our money, we bought the game, but now they want to reinforce you are about to have an experience. You are going to experience something, and we are setting the tone for that experience. So I'm really curious to see if the rest of the game is contemplative in that way, or it has us feeling like we are combating this sense of loss. Very curious. Good title screen. Nice work, Subset Games. Let's play Into the Breach.